Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our weekly Q&A. Um, this week, we're going to be talking about camps and trips, particularly how we run them in Passend Education for gifted kids. Because I'm TJ, I'm a specialist in highly gifted education, and I'm here to help you guys figure out, okay, why are your kids sometimes reluctant to join camps? If they do join, how can we make sure that they get the most out of it? And I think it will be kind of a fun break from talking about what we do in our normal classes. But we love doing the camps. They're a lot of work, but they're great fun to actually see succeed and create memorable situations for kids. So um, I thought I start a little bit about where the idea of going to camps come from, because um, a lot of people think camps themselves are just this thing that is just fun. That's it. We go on camp, it's just fun, that's it. But in gifted education, there's a few scholars that are very, very particular about having gifted camps and trips to help support the curriculum, not just as a nice to have, but as a very important step towards their development. So, as you know by now, in Passend Education, our first aim is to make gifted kids more happy, because happy kids are ready to learn. Then we talk about helping them become more autonomous, which is all about the skills needed to build habits that are productive, that help you prepare for the rest of your life, to the point where that turns into a self-reflected, self-actualizing version of success. And there's a lot of scientific research done by scholars like Diener, who is responsible for the World Happiness Index, for example, that show that there's a strong correlation between happiness and success. And the most happy countries in the world often also are the highest GDP per capita scoring countries in the world. So there's some interesting work from Libero Rinsky as well on how that correlation works. So we've taken that particular research to heart and decided, okay, well, what does that mean then? So what do we need to look at? Now, in the context of camps, what are camps supposed to do? Well, first of all, we have Joseph Renzulli. He's been around in gifted education for a very, very long time. He likes doing Venn diagrams. That's where this sort of reference comes from. But Joseph Renzulli did something called the special enrichment modules for schools, which are basically the building blocks for a gifted education that has been used predominantly in the US. So SEM, Joseph Renzulli said we have 3 different tiers of differentiation. And the last tier of differentiation and enrichment should really look into real life experiences. So what he said, you have to go beyond the regular curriculum and help students discover their strengths and passions. And this is why I think camps are so interesting. They obviously don't take place in a normal classroom. So by just changing the setting, the experience becomes different. We already see a difference when we take some of our kids out to do this. One very common tactic that I tell my teachers if kids don't seem to be paying attention is to, if it doesn't feel right, take the whole class up, walk outside and do something different. Can you produce your lesson in an outside setting without a slide? Have you ever thought about what could you do to make that land more? Now, if you're doing biology, things like that, it's even more interesting, of course. But Joseph Renzulli specifically in his works mentions that camps are really, really, really important. Now, Joyce von Tassel-Baxter came to very similar conclusions. She did a little bit more, not models kind of research. She did actual tests on the happiness index for kids and so on. And she said that it's most important about the opportunities for meaningful challenge. And this is really the core of gifted education. Gifted kids need to be challenged. And of course, all kids need to be challenged, but gifted kids without that challenge become bored. And boredom is a really, really bad emotion to have when you're in a situation where you do not have the agency to leave. And school is, by definition, a version of that. Now, why camps are so powerful in this is because all camps, particularly gifted and talented camps, are opt-in for the kids. So there is an element of asking the kids, do you want to go for camp? Now, we as coaches and as mentors in Passend Education system are trying to guide kids towards the strength or like the bravery to overcome any resistance towards a camp. Like the younger you are, the more scary a camp is. To be honest, that's often starts with a lot of parents that are like, oh, "My child is like 5, 6 years old. Are they old enough to go in a camp?" And that particular kind of energy that bleeds into the kids as well, right? So it's not just the kids being scared; it's often parents also a little bit afraid letting their kids go, and all of that is pretty normal, I say. Like, it doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. It means that you care about your kids, and that is great, right? So don't blame yourself if you sometimes are the source of your kids' discomfort when it comes to it. But when we talk about challenge for kids, we and then trying to attempt to get them to be involved in that. Again, we want for happiness, you need agency. We want the kids to make that choice. We don't manipulate them. We don't force them. We don't coerce them, and we don't trick them into it. We try to let them make a decision that they care about. Now that does mean that sometimes we do need to talk about camps, particularly if kids are scared of them, right? So, like the idea of exposure therapy towards fear is that you take smaller steps towards it. So, what you do is you ask the children, "Oh, are you going for camp?" Um, and if they're scared to go to camp, they will say no. Just thinking about the camp makes them feel scared a little bit. At some point, we'll say, "Hey, you know what? It's you don't have to go. Don't worry." But if we have do a certain kind of project and we do like one extension of it at the camp itself, it will be mentioned. You can then decide whether you want to join that camp or not. And then again, like that little bit of getting used to that fear eventually will make them go, "Okay, I'm going to do it." And where this is really, really powerful is that there will be some kids who are not scared at all. So they are basically going to go, "Yeah, I want to go to camp." Like they're asking us when the next camp is. And it's one of the reasons why we do one every half year, because it allows us to sort of like have that little camp on the horizon. Like for kids, a year is a long time. And a half year, still a long time for them. It's like for us, it's a blink of an eye. But like the older you get, the more relative the time becomes to you. But therefore, that 6 month period, it seems to be kind of the sweet spot for us. And again, when we get to the kids, they will talk about it. You will ask them every time when we have a child that is scared to go on a camp, which means we're challenging them to think about something that is outside of their comfort zone. And at some point, they hopefully will say yes. Right. So, and that sort of ties into Detsy and Ryan's autonomy and competence and relatedness, and then they also talk about well-being, and they themselves also mention camps as a really big yeah, catalyst towards that. So, the biggest thing that I think when it comes down to like how we have what opportunity we have when we talk about camps specifically is this last bit here. So in Asia, I find that of course a lot of parents are very driven by academic success, and I think there's nothing wrong with trying to achieve academic success, even though a lot of the academic work say that the grades are technically not the best motivator to get people to work in the best way. Now, every time educators try to get that across to parents, they run into a kind of a difficult situation. There's will be some parents that go, "Yeah, but like that means they need to get straight A's, right?" And like luckily, that is really not necessary, right? Because you can have really good success, and then you have to then define what is success in the rest of your life. Is that like monetary success or anything else? But even without straight A's, like to be honest, the majority of people aren't straight A scorers, and there's a huge chunk of them that even drop out of school that do well, right? So like school is a pathway there, but it's not the only one. And then what is really important is that A's on themselves can sometimes be a limiting factor. And a good example of this is that we have one girl that I'm working with right now in the program, and she has had 3 top of the world scores, and doing A levels right now, and um, she thinks she's got another few 100%. She is extremely frustrated. She still has to go through this song and dance in A levels because the stuff that she really wants to be working on is things that are already being done in university. And to be honest, this particular girl should have probably been um, in university 2 years ago. So even though she's a straight A student, as far as I'm concerned, she's underperforming against her ability because she could have been working on scientific research, like at a like PhD kind of level, working towards a PhD at some point, 2 years, 3 years earlier. And then she could have already been taking more time to become more specialized in her chosen field of physics to get even more ahead. So in her case, being a straight A student and going through that song and dance has been a limiting factor. And it's kind of logical when you look at it, like in a lot of ways. You see, like I saw in a news article the other day about like a 12-year-old that was like one of the youngest SPM, like all straight A's kind of performer. And you could argue that like, hey, like even that means that 12-year-old probably could have maybe done her SPM like a year or two earlier, right? So like the academic success isn't just measured by straight A's. The difference is though, is that if the children decide that, you know what, I'm going to go for an academic pursuit and I want to get like straight A's because I want to test to see if I could do it, to me, that is great. Like that is that is trying to take on a challenge that could be hard. It requires you to do a certain kind of metacognition skill development, which really helps. But the extracurricular stuff, the other things outside, the experience that they have are just as important. So, and that's what I mean with opportunities to grow, right? So when you look at kids, and particularly in Malaysia, last week we spoke a bit about play and how the amount of hours of play are abysmally low compared to like the successful countries with the highest GDP per capita in Europe specifically, and high happiness indexes and high PISA rankings. Like so that holy trinity of like, oh, you could be happy and successful at the same time. That then okay, maybe there's not enough opportunities to grow. And when we talk about play is about expanding your comfort zone, like naturally when there's other peers around that help you see there's other challenges available, right? So when you go into a playground, particularly the ones that are a little bit dangerous, you can see that the kids will try things if they see other kids do it as well. And in camps, this is even more so, like because what happens in camps, they are very intense situations. I'm sure some of you might have gone on team building retreats and things like that, and you know that the atmosphere is different. You spend a lot of time with kids, with yourself, with other people. Like if you have colleagues like this, you spend a lot of time talking over breakfast, over lunch. Like the whole experience becomes this really integrated thing. And camps basically do all that. So like when you say about like opportunities to grow, in some cases it means learning how to do the dishes because and this is like what I love about a camp situation. It's like if you're at home and you have a dishwasher and we have 20 plates, then you can get away with not doing your own dishes sometimes, particularly if you have nannies and things like that. When we are at camp, and they have one cup, one plate, one spoon, one fork, and we tell them this is yours, and they don't wash them themselves or they don't take care of them themselves, then tough luck. You might not like get some food. There's a direct consequence to you not doing your duties or your responsibilities. Now, of course, there's ways that we help around that to make sure that kids don't starve to death. But it's that little bit of discomfort and thing that really makes them go, oh, maybe I should, behave a bit more and help my fellow students like take care of their stuff and not forget my own things as well. Very simple rule that we have that we state at the very, very beginning at every camp is that we are not going to look for your water bottles. Period. We do not look for your water bottles. If you lose your water bottle, it's tough luck. We have a water cooler with like some paper cups that they can have, which the paper cups have to be left over there. So that means they lose their mobility that they would gain from a water bottle. But like if they come in, it's like rule one's like, I lost my water bottle. We just look at them. It's like, is it our job to find it? No, I guess not. And a lot of them learn how to deal with that straight away. So this is basically the ring here of like happiness, like being safe and connected, because that's the cool thing about a camp. Our campsites are enclosed, so they can't go anywhere, but it does feel like it's an open field, and they can walk. They can, if they decide not to join any of the sessions, it's fine. Like, we don't have grades. There's no attendance, like we have roll calls to find out if everybody is there. But like within the space of where things are happening, like if a kid feels like, oh, I don't want to build a bridge this time, they don't want to join an experience, that's okay. Right. And then when they see other people enjoying themselves, they'll come crawling back. So it's very rare for them to not do anything for a long time. And we normally have like some kind of STEM thing that they're doing where they can, if they want to, like build something as the camp is going on, free of any kind of supervision from us. And that helps some of these kids that need that regulation on occasion a bit. Right. So, but autonomy, making choices, really taking ownership of things, like you lose your bag, well, that means you're going to be running around in a little bit sweaty clothes for a day, right? Which is uncomfortable, but again, like it will make sure that they learn, okay, I need to pack my stuff, I need to take care of it. And that comes with that independence. There's no clocks, there's no school bells. They don't show up for the things we do. They miss it. Oh, we were doing so much fun, we're playing football, and then we missed the start of campfire. Tough luck. It's a great way to sort of get this really intense experiences that the kids want to join, and they have to think about what they need to do. So that is there. So why do we work so well? Well, there's basically this intensity and immersion that happens, right? Just the split of like, I know I'm somewhere else, I know I can't rely immediately on my on parents and others, basically turns on completely new pathways in their brain, which is really cool. Like we do the same when we're assessing kids. So like when we assess kids, we want to know how good they are at doing homework and task commitment. But if we give them tests or we give them homework, they will not like act like they normally would want to naturally. They have already learned how to either throw a test. I've had kids that basically purposely make it look like tests are different than they should be, because they know they've got extra work if they do a test well. So they pretend that they don't. Some do this subconsciously. And a lot of them basically, as when I'm saying subconsciously, they do it without really thinking about it. It just happens. Like, here's homework, I'm going to act. Oh, here's some homework, I don't want to do it. Or here's homework, oh, I'm going to do my best, or I'm going to act like a perfectionist. Just that other environment just changes the way that the kids look at that. So that is a really important one, the first one. The challenge, like when we talk about authentic challenges, when we say, okay, we're going to build a bridge over a little river that we have, it's a real river, right? So there's no, oh, let's make a fictional river. No, it's like the bridge is real. If you don't do it right, the thing will collapse and we won't be able to cross. You can't get it more authentic than that. Like, again, what is the natural consequence of behaviors that you want to see? So if they're monkeying around, the bridge won't work. Right, so that means we can't move across this thing. We can't reach the other part of the path, and then the other kids will go, "No, I'm sorry, I need to work something there." The emotional resilience is really important. The autonomy, I spoke a bit about that. So so camps and trips are not just fun; they're formative. Right, when I say our camps have such a profound impact on our kids, and we're going to talk a bit about like some examples of kids that we've really had in our sessions, it's amazing. Like, we can see sometimes from kids going to a camp, like how much they change when they come back in school the next time. Like it's almost like there's a little switch that went off in their heads. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means as parents, because that doesn't mean we have to force the kids to go there. Like, this is a very big caveat. We want enough firmness to see decisions that the kids made through. So if they decide to come, there is consequences that they have to live with those decisions. But we don't want to force them in there, because if we force them into a camp and then something goes wrong, they will be able to sort of blame that on other people that made them go. So it's really, really important that we give them that agency. Yeah, so that's also important when you look at camps, and this is not just for our camps that we organize. Like I'm a big proponent of going for lots and lots of different camps. Is that not all camps are equal, right? So you have to really look at like what kind of camps do fit different children, and not all children fit the same kind of camps. Some need a little bit more comfort. Some like a lot more easy to go into the full jungle. Like we try to make our camps having a bit of both, with the opportunity for some of them to say, no, I don't really want to do this. This is too icky, too sticky. I can't get around doing this. There'll be something else that we allow them to do. But it is not like we don't make it an easy, obvious choice, because we do want them to feel like they have to put a little bit of effort into like making a choice the way that they do. Right. So that is the bits here that we say that works really well. The last thing I want to talk about is about peer belonging. Like peer belonging is so important in this. The shared experiences, particularly at camps that are a bit disastrous sometimes. Like one of our very first camps had seriously a once in 10-year kind of storm, which was a lot worse than the last one where we had. Like, and in that one, like literally the water was like coming up this high into most of the tents. And not because the water was like turning into a big river, but it's because for some reason the camp that was built had like these protective barriers around the tents, and they were raised off the floor, so they looked a bit like this. And then they had like a little barrier of bricks around it, and they thought like, okay, that is a great way to sort of protect the tents from weather and stuff. But unfortunately, these things turned into bathtubs. So we had these tents in here, and there was just like, I don't know, 10 centimeters of water in all of the particular places that we had, and it was terrible. Like we had to we have backups for all of our tents like this when we have basically houses around it where the kids can go. So the kids were never not safe. But the kids that, for the tents that did manage to survive, and where the kids decided, we want to stay in these tents and all that kind of stuff, the shared experience of that terrible storm was a defining moment for them, where they still talk about it every time they set up. And some of the veterans of our camps from 3 years ago are basically talking to kids and saying like, oh, well, be careful that you don't wash away at night. And that little bit of like mystery does help with a lot of stuff. So obviously, when it comes to gifted kids, like one of the challenges is that if you're a gifted kid, you're about 1 in 20, like in a normal situation, and in most of the international schools, about 1 in 10. So if you're lucky, you have like two kids in a gifted, like two gifted kids in a class, because most international schools are around like hovering around like 15 to 20 kids per class, some of them a little bit more. But basically, you have to be like, being gifted doesn't mean you automatically are friends, right? So they're still kids, and not all of them like them. So like just having two gifted kids, which is a little bit rare in one class, being friend is already a bit tough. So a lot of gifted kids feel a bit lonely, and then a lot of them tend to be a bit scared to, and I'll go into that a little bit later, like why that is. So they don't feel like they belong. So a gifted camp is a real opportunity to say, okay, here's like 50 gifted kids. The chance that there'll be one or two kids in there that will be close friends is way, way higher, right? And that get them, so certain kind of fears that they have is more shared. So they're more likely to push each other, like to look for that boundary and help overcome them, right? So that is a big part there. So I was talking about like how gifted kids often seem like, like I don't want to go on camp. Like there's a lot of kids that will just categorically say, no, I don't want to go to camp. And then I get parents coming to me and they go like, I mean, like they're saying no, they just don't want to do this. But there is a bit of like, they call it the gifted child paradox. Fantasel Baksa talks about this a lot too. But saying no doesn't always mean no interest. Like a big chunk of gifted behaviors is basically dealing with fear. And particularly with fear as in like a challenge against like ego, right? So the idea that my ego is at stake. So the most difficult thing, and this drives cognitive dissonance and other kind of things, are hits to our ego, which normally take in gifted education normally takes the form of I'm scared to fail at something. And I find that like this is one of the main reasons why A's are such a terrible idea in primary specifically, but it carries on to secondary and so on. Is that like they build up a fixed mindset, like a very big ego. And then if you achieve that because you're doing very little work, very little practice, your ego really takes a big hit when you start to struggle, right? And that kind of behavior can happen very early. Right? Like if we've worked with a girl like 4 years old that really struggled with this. So like even at a young age of 4, the ego already created so something like things like perfectionism, perfectionism, or like hyperfocus, like which is kind of like the same kind of thing. It can any kind of avoidance, right? So this is like walking around, daydreaming, a lot of these hypersensitivities that we talk about. Let me just see. There you go. So the hypersensitivities are often a coping mechanism with the need for more stimulation, but also one to avoid things like fear and so forth. So there, like all this is a big trigger, right? So, and at the same time, though, whilst they are very scared to do things, they actually also have a very deep need for constant novelty. So a big chunk of our gifted kids, and this is the boredom speaking, have this constant pull and push between like being really bored because they need something new and a lot of them having developed a real fear of failure, right? So what you're having here is like this split ego that is constantly going back and forth, and this is where that anxiety comes from, right? So as you can see, the perfectionism and fear of failure there, like obviously you can control things like overthinking stuff, which is a very common way of avoiding again failure, right? So okay, like if I'm very clever and I can look at lots of different scenarios, I can prevent anything bad from happening. And it's like you can observe people building a bridge, you can learn anything you need to, and there you go. And then when you have to actually, when you think, okay, now I'm going to do the right thing, when you have to lift the first plank because you've never lifted a finger for anything, the plank is too heavy and you can't do what you intended to do, or you don't have the motor skills to hit nails down a certain thing and you can't get done what you need to do. So overthinking is definitely not a right kind of approach to problems. Like rushing in isn't one either. Like you have to have like a bit of a balance between both. But like when you talk about kids that are really struggling with coming to something as a camp, like what is often happening is that okay, like maybe there's nobody I'll know. Maybe there'll be some stuff happening that I'm not aware of that I can't prepare for. I might look like I'm bad like at this. And I've never had a chance to observe it. So and you don't need to see this as like the kids doing this on purpose. A lot of this stuff is very deeply driven. And honestly, even when we talk about teens, which um, it's such an interesting thing when in the Netherlands, because we've been running these camps for like 20, 30 years, the teens that we work with in the Netherlands really don't have any inhibitions in joining camps. In fact, a lot of them love running the camps, like really almost like to try and pay that experience forward to the kids that we're with. Like in an ideal situation, and we're going to get there in Malaysia eventually, I want all the activities being led by the students, by the teens. Not only are they great opportunities for them to learn how to manage younger kids, it looks really great on their resumes because like writing curriculum is really about understanding what people need. So like what do they need to learn? How do we keep it safe? How do we keep it interesting? How do you get 50 kids involved in the same way? How do you gamify it? Like it's a very creative skill. And being able to run that successfully, and successfully in a camp it's hard work. Right. So when you put that on your resume, it means something. Right. So I would say when it comes down to like how do we get these like kids to work with us? Because that's the thing that we see in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, we have no issue getting the teens to join. Because in Malaysia we've only been operating for 3 years, we can see that that foundation of like that overcoming uncomfortable situation is just not as prevalent. So that a lot of the teens struggle with the concept of camp. And I've seen a lot of our schools, they'll say, oh, we go in a camp and they sleep not in tents. They don't sleep, they sleep in really nice facilities. Like I've seen people call, like the term camp in Malaysia is so ambiguous. So they talk about summer camps. I'm like, wow, there's so many summer camps online. And then we were looking at like, can we do something similar? And then I realized that all those other camps don't have overnight stays, for example. It's like, why call it a camp in the first place? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. But like I think it's because inherently a lot of people think, hey, a camp is worthwhile. I would love to go for a camp. So it's a bit of a marketing trick. But when we tell people like we're going on camp, like and parents go like, oh, it's like camp. Like where do they sleep? Yeah, in tents. Oh, like a camp. Yeah, it's a camp. Really, like again, we want them to feel uncomfortable a little bit, but it's really fun. And then like that's where I want to get in Malaysia. Like if the young kids right now going on camps are teens of like 4 or 5 years from now, they're more likely to be able to do these kind of camps, have like a little bit of summer jobs and things like that that they could maybe do, which again will come onto your resume. And then you can solve that age-old conundrum. It's like, oh, I want a fresh grad, but I want a work experience. Saying, oh, you can do that if you work during the summer, which is a very common thing in Europe. It's very hard to actually get to see that happen here in Malaysia. I think maybe that's a good topic for one of these next weeks. Like, how can I get my teens a meaningful outside of school experience that isn't just a club or anything like jobs and things like that. But camps have a very similar kind of opportunity for our gifted kids when we run camps like this. Right. So this is obviously a challenge that we have to help our kids with. Right. So I'll tell you a few stories from our camps and trips that are really good. Right. So because the first one is like, and we always like to look at like things like courage, belonging, competence, friendship, autonomy. But this is one of those where like we had a twice exceptional girl. So her feeling of what camp was going to be was exceptionally, how to say, fearful, right? And this is a girl that like can't really like have sticky situations in any kind of like very particular about what to eat, all these kind of things. So in our classes, really scared to do anything, and took her 2 camps for her to actually join. Like the very first camp, she decided like, no, this is a little bit too much for me. I can't do this. But the second camp, she came in and she actually had a sister with her that was one of our sisters, much older. But basically, that sister helped with the rest of the camp. And as she was observing all the other kids doing things, at some point, she basically started helping cleaning up, and it was a big like whoa moments. Like even her sister was looking at like what was going on, because we were cooking, because we do all the cooking ourselves. Like that includes peeling. The kids are encouraged to help. Right, so we do have somebody there that cooks, but like some of the kids want to come in and they help peel stuff and things like that. And obviously, there's like for a camp of 50 kids, there's like a lot of waste, like potato peels or whatever we're doing, and that can feel sticky and icky. And for her, it like she felt like, okay, everybody's cleaning up. This is my duty, and she saw that everybody was like kind of hesitant about it, and she just started cleaning up. And it's almost like there was a light switch for her. Like the moment she went into the camp, like almost all of those like feelings around things being sticky and stuff were no more, barely observable. Like when I asked her one time, it's like, okay, do you still feel that? She said, yeah, I do, but I know that if I can just wash myself after, it's okay. Like I can do this. So that's a very, very simple one. Another one that was really nice is like a story about a boy that was like extremely homesick. And that's very common, to be honest. Like homesickness is obviously one of the biggest challenges that we face. And to be honest, a lot of the it comes from the mummies too. We get a lot of messages at night. Sometimes dads too, by the way. Like, okay, is my son or my boy, is my girl doing well? How's things going? Which is why we send a lot of messages during the camp, mostly to help the parents feel like safe and so on. But this particular boy, yeah, like when he came in, he was like, "Oh, I don't feel like it. I'm not sure what to do." But he'd say, "You know what? I'm going to try and stay the night." And then the very first night that he came, like yeah, he was just crying his eyes out. He didn't know what to do. And we had an agreement with the parents, like, and we do this with all our camps, that the kids can be picked up to a certain time. It's very important. Like the campsites, they close normally like at like 10 o'clock or something. So the pickup needs to happen before a certain time, and we tell the kids this. We say, hey, if you really feel you can't do this, you have to make a decision at like 9 o'clock, because if your parents are late, the gate is closed, the guards will not open the door for anything. You'll have to have an ambulance coming in, and only then you're allowed to go. And this particular boy couldn't make it. He said like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this. So he was picked up. The next day, he walked in. He was dropped off again the next morning, because the agreement was you bring the kids in the morning and that's it. And what happened here is the boy was like walking along with us, like we were, I don't know, cleaning up something. Like I believe we did the morning dishes, and the kids were talking about all the stuff that happened at night, because like they don't sleep until 1 o'clock. I can guarantee you that. Doesn't matter how hard we pretend to be upset and angry about it. Like they will not sleep until 1 o'clock. So and that's okay with us, because I can guarantee you the second night they all sleep like babies, like very very easily. But they had so much fun, right? So what was happening here is like these poor kids like were like talking about it, like, oh, this was fun. And then the boy was like, oh, can I know a bit more what you did? And then can I, like, what did you do then? And then this girl was working there. She's like, if you just wouldn't have gone home, you could have experienced it all yourself. I don't really want to explain it again. And the boy was like, oof, okay. Um, and he comes up to me about half hour later and he says, I'm going to really try to stay again tonight. And he did. It was a tough night for him. He woke up a few times, and he came to see me. And honestly, I think the experience has made him so much more confident in a lot of ways, that like a couple of months later, new camp was coming up, and he was proudly proclaiming in class, I was super scared and I was super homesick, but now no, I can stay the night, and we're all good. Right. So he's now becoming an advocate for, like overcoming homesickness, which is really, really encouraging. And I think that this boy in particular, as a result, he's also being like, he's making so many jumps right now in just his academic work and everything else, because he's no longer so much scared of certain things, and it's great to see. um, Now, basically, the "I'm not good at this" thing is that's very common. Like we've had so many. We had at one point one of the camps, one of the build a rotisserie chicken kind of challenge. It's like 2 camps ago, where we had like this big mechanical thing with pulleys and weights and stuff to roast the chicken. And yeah, that basically was something that like we threw the components out, and we let the kids like try to build it for the whole camp. Every time we had a little bit interlude, they would go in, they would test it. And in this particular one situation, we had one girl that said like, nah, this is not something I like to do. Like, I don't think this is for me. And just because, again, her observing what was happening, she started to join in, and slowly she started to like join in more and more. And in the end, she was like fully busy with like trying to make this thing work. And they actually managed to make it work. But like again, because there was so much time to look at that task, because that task was basically put down on the first day, and then it was like people keep trying to mess with it up to Sunday, and it had no end date, and there was no supervision. It was just like, okay, can we use this thing to roast a chicken? Yes or no? Let's figure it out. And eventually she was like more involved with it than even one of the other boys that originally was like his idea to do it. So like just that sustained being able to look at it, And then the opportunity of having the time when they're supposed to just play around and the kids are just a little bit bored with nothing really to do, made her decide, okay, I'm do something with this, even though she normally says I'm very bad at like engineering stuff. So I'm not going to go too much detail into the other ones, but like when you say about finding people, like this is also one of the girls that we worked with originally. She would sometimes say things. I'm so frustrated to talk to other people because they feel like the people don't speak at my level, and the language she uses is a little bit more colorful, like like I'm not going to repeat it, but basically she found it very difficult to find people to talk to, and she always felt like she had a mask on. She was constantly trying to hide who she was. Definitely not in a happy kind of state of mind. Like would dismiss things like a camp, like, oh, this is not going to work. And when she came to the camp at campfire at one point, I started a game called Werewolves, which there's a version of it called Mafia. A lot of the kids also know it. It's about finding hidden roles and stuff like that. And she got up and she started doing this particular game, and she led that game so well that the kids were constantly asking her, "Can we do it again?" And she enjoyed it because the actual kids playing really knew how to play the game very well. But she said, like, I don't want to do this stuff because normally, like people just act silly and the whole thing doesn't work. So like finding your people, playing board games, like when we had like the rain the other day, like we had a bunch of board games with us, and we had massive rain, so we couldn't do anything outside. And we have tons of board games we bring for that occasion. And we were like, oh man, so sad. Like the rain sort of put a damper on everything. And all the kids said, oh no, we had so much fun. Like just playing games. It's like, yeah, there you go. Now the last one that I did it, like packed my bag and I took some charge and all that kind of stuff. Um, that is actually one that you see with all the kids. And I think it would be nice to look at like, okay, like how can we help with this? Because this is basically where I think looking at stoic preparation and positive discipline is where you can take a lot of stuff home at home. Like so, for those that don't know, Stoic philosophy is that of the original emperor of maybe you guys have heard of oh my god, now I'm losing my mind on this. So this is Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the Roman Empire at its absolute peak, wrote like sort of like his daily diary with thoughts on Stoicism. The idea with Stoicism is that you have either a sphere of influence where you can affect what you do, and you have stuff that you cannot affect. But even for the things that you cannot affect, you can probably do things to prepare, and that allows you to sort of take a hopeless situation and turn it into a more of a manageable situation, because you say, okay, there's thousands of things that could go wrong, but there's things I could do to sort of mitigate that or prevent those things from happening. And then I'm prepared, which means that if the thing goes wrong, you feel, okay, I'm ready for it. So that is a big part of Stoicism. And positive discipline in particular talks a lot about not forcing kids to do anything, which means we give them all the choice. We also give them a lot of responsibility. So one of the things we do in class, for example, is we keep asking the kids, okay, we have these tasks that need to happen, that people need to be responsible for. Who wants to do them? And by just letting the kids choose what tasks they want to do and then how they can be responsible for it, which doesn't mean I have to do it. It's like they're responsible for getting the other kids to do it. And you can help. You can say this person is in charge of being like clean, and this one is in charge of the dishes. This one is in charge of making sure everybody is ready for the next session. All these whatever roles that we think are important, we can put up. And when you give the kids like this sort of thing to do, all of a sudden they become more like, oh, this is my thing. I can feel what I can do. So how we combine this? Like, what is positive discipline in terms of preparation, and how can you make that happen? So generally speaking, we have one. I'll take one situation with kids that don't want to go. Right. So we just learned that a lot of kids say that they don't want to go, often because they're scared of the situation. what we tend to do is we say, okay, we want them to go on a camp. So a lot of parents would go, okay, let's force them. Like we take that choice away, they have to go. That actually creates more resentment and more difficulty. And that probably means that if then the camp didn't go the way they thought it would go, they will say, no, I'm not going again. And so it gets that like, oh, like you made me go, I'll go there. And then the next time you'll say, no, how was it? I said, oh, it wasn't fun. Right. And then it's like, okay, we're not going to send them next time, but at least they tried. But they didn't actually try. You forced them to. It's very different. So what we do instead is we validate feelings, right? So we ask them to be okay with the feelings. It's okay to be nervous, okay to be scared. Like I'm feeling uncomfortable is okay, right? Dismissing it like, oh, it's not a big deal, that is fine, doesn't work. So no, the feelings are fine, right? So if you say, but it won't be that bad, if it will be bad, then again, you've got the complete opposite of what you need to do. And like, this is a camp, like it's Malaysia, it's the rainforest, like some of the stuff we run on can be a little bit tricky, right? So what we do is we collaborate. So what can we do to plan? So this is the stoic part of things. Like if it rains, do we have a raincoat? Right? If we have, like, do we have some dry clothes wrapped in like a little plastic bag? And that's why in our preparation we say put that in, so that if things get wet, I have a dry set of clothes, like a dry set of underwear, things like that. Like honestly, if they're really good at this, they'll just like pack everything in little vacuum sealed bags like this, and A, the bag will be smaller, and B, it will be fully protected from the rain. And it's also about like, okay, what other things are you scared of? So there will be some solution that somebody has figured out. Saying, oh, it will be super dark. We have flashlights. There'll be bugs. Okay, we have bug spray. We have stickers. You can, if you want, you can have one of those nets, like the Klombu, whatever it is that you need to do. So like you really ask them to think about what stuff we need, and then you could ask them, what things do you think would mitigate that? Right. So and that's where the prepare calmly comes in. By giving them the tools and looking it up, like again, it's like by talking about like, okay, this is all the preparation you can do. This is all the things you can do to help you. You will reassure them, right? Now the opposite, of course, being, oh, make sure that you're not going to climb on this. Make sure that you do this. Like make sure you always brush your teeth. Like all these things are actually making them a little bit more fearful. So keep that in mind. So and then send with connection, right? Like when you talk to them, this is what really good at the boy that had such fear of homesickness. At some point, he said, you know what, I'm going to try, but if I can make a quick call at 8 o'clock just to say good night to my mom and dad, I'll be happy, right? So like having that availability, and then what was really nice is the mom said, it's like, so I'm really proud of you that you're doing this, and you could see his little chest puff up, and then he slept like a baby after that, which is like a really good response. It's like really nice from the mom to see that too, right? So now, what doesn't help in this, what they talk about, don't make it an option. That of course is once they've decided that they want to go, the option itself it should no longer be fully available anymore, because now the consequence is you've made a choice. So if they can go or not, when it's time to make the decision, they say, you know what, I think I'm going to do it, then it's a permanent choice, right? Then you have to see through, because them making the choice to go means they have the courage in them to actually do it. And that's when you then can frame it. No, you've made a choice. Now this is the consequence that we have to deal with, right? Now, what does that mean though? Like practically, like if you get the kids ready for camp, what can you do? Well, first of all, like when we run our camps, particularly for the younger kids, we tell them you have the option not to stay the night, right? So you can just come for the day and that's it. But if some parents go, I want to get them to stay the night, but I'm worried that they might not be able to do it. And in signs of very big distress, just to like you need to give them that option to go out, which is what we organize for the younger kids. However, what we do say, and this is actually very important for the ones where often the kids are fine, but maybe mommy or daddy are a little bit more odd and never going to stay the night. We tell them pack all the stuff regardless. So if you stay the night, and the option is there to stay the night if the camp is not full, whatever, then what is important is like you pack all the stuff. You just have it there just in case, so that if they decide to stay, they can. Right? Because if they do stay the night, the experience themselves, as we said, will be probably altering, like in terms of like how they see fear and things in the future, which is really important. They'll probably make lifelong friends, which is also very important. So like that's the kind of stuff that if you want a happy self-sufficient individual somewhere along the line, obviously that's what you want. And understand that particularly with some of our younger kids, like the 5 and 6 year olds, maybe even the 16-year-olds, like letting your baby boy or girl sleep overnight somewhere is always a bit scary. But like maybe that's also a fear that we as parents have to work on a little bit over time. Right. So and with that, it's like normalizing nerves. I mean, maybe that's one of the other reasons why a lot of kids are a little bit worried about like all of this. Like, hey, like is everything gonna like be okay? It's like are we ourselves not necessarily modeling that we are nervous sometimes as well? Like being nervous and making mistakes is okay. It's good, right? We purposely make mistakes in our classes and on boards to make some of our kids feel more comfortable. To let them know that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to try something new. Right. So, but the biggest part is, you expect success, but you plan for massive failure, just in case, so that when things happen, things are fine. And there's one parent that I remember in this big hailstorm. We lost like 8 out of 10 tents. There was only 2 tents that actually were still functioning, doing all right. We were making our rounds, making sure that the kids were there, and we obviously informed the parents like, hey, like campsite is interesting. The kids are all safe. Don't worry. But like, if some of the kids feel this is a bit too much, we're not gonna. There's an option for you to pick them up. And one of the boys that we thought was never ever going to stay, because well, this boy would normally be scared of everything. Just because everything was packed and everything was okay, and they were having fun in their tent, even though there was a lot of rain. Like we asked him, it's like, do you want to move to the cabin? So he's like, no, I'm fine. And the parents themselves were like, wow, okay, we didn't expect this at all. And he's been coming on every camp since. So it's been great. So yeah, so this is, I think, there's one more slide which I go in. Like this is actually the important part here. I guess what is the success? Like how do we measure what an actual camp is like? And that is actually sometimes a success of a camp you cannot really measure, right? And you have to think like not everything needs optimization. You need time in between learning to really learn. Like it amazes me that like how sometimes misunderstood that is. The idea of study-free periods that all our A-level students are running into right now is not to study. A lot of people don't know this, but the concept of it being the way it's employed in places like Harvard is that the idea is you should be finished studying and learning 1 week or 2 weeks before an actual exam happens, and the 2 weeks in between is just you relaxing and enjoying it, so that the actual learning that you've done cements in your head. And we sometimes fail to plan for this. So when you look at like these things in between, like boredom when you're not forced to be there, or like forced to be in a single situation where you have to sit still, is okay. And unstructured time means that people have to like figure out their own way to be on time. Being silly and playing is like such an important part that like we don't get enough play in Malaysia. As I mentioned, camps do that great. And then yeah, like all the other stuff there. But and this bit, they're not resume builders, but that's not entirely true unless like unless you are a guide. And that's actually the big thing that we really want to get all these kids to come towards, because when you are a guide, like as a teen, oh, it's great. We've got like 2 kids that were guiding at our camp. They now asked us, can we do an internship? with you guys, because we want to organize more of these camps in the summer. Right, so why not, right? Like it's great. But I remember going on these camps when I was 12, when my mom was organizing them at the time. And then I went once as an 18-year-old guiding it. And these camps have been going on for 35 years in the Netherlands, and they've been such a great part. So I just wanted to talk a bit about like how we view camps and how important we think they are for kids. If you guys want, I'd love to take some questions on it. Um, if not, like all this could be found on YouTube as per normal. And for those that were here and have other questions that you want to ask in the chat about the next topic, which will be metacognition specifically and executive functioning, then I would love to hear it. So with that, I think I wish you guys a very, very good evening. And I thank you all for your time.